Welcome back. In this video, we'll create our first program with graphical user interface. Up until now, the programs we made using the C language and Java had a text-based user interface, meaning we had to type in the console and the program would respond by printing something back in the same console area. As opposed to this, programs with graphical user interface, or GUI, allow you to provide input not only by typing text, but also by clicking buttons, selecting something from drop-down menus, and so on. Most modern user apps that you have on your computer or phone have some sort of graphical interface. NetBeans has graphical user interface too. So in this video, we'll create a simple GUI program. Let's get started. Oh wait, before we actually get to work, I've got something to tell you. Something that some of you might have gotten sick of. You got it, I'm gonna refer you to the previous videos. But seriously, there might be some unfamiliar things in this video that will overwhelm you. And if that happens, please do refer to the previous videos on this channel before proceeding with this one. And now let's get to work. Let's create a new project in NetBeans and name it GUI. Let's now add a new file to our GUI package. Does anybody remember how to do that? We need to right-click on the package and select New. Instead of a class though, we are going to add a new JFrame form. Let's name it Form A and press Finish. You should be able to see this gray rectangle. This is the form that we will be working with. To give you a better idea of what a form is, let's run this file by right-clicking on it and choosing Run File. And this is what you should be able to see. Just like with most apps, you can move this window on the screen, close it, and minimize it. Let's close it for now as there isn't much else to do with this blank form. On the right, you should be able to see the palette pane that has multiple components that we can add to our form. Let's add a button from the Swing Controls category, this one. Let's click on it and drag it to the form, like this. And now we have a clickable button on our form. First, let's position the button on the form somewhat more nicely, something like this. The current text, JButton 1, isn't very informative, so let's change it as well. To do that, we need to right-click on the button and choose Edit Text. Now let's run this form to see what it looks like. Some of you might remember that if we click the Run Project button, this one, NetBeans will not show the form. This is because when we click the Run Project button, by default, NetBeans calls the main method of the class that was added to the project first. And the class that was added first is the GUI class. We'll fix this later on, and for now, let's just run the form directly by right-clicking on it and choosing Run File. As you can see, we now have a button that we can click, but nothing happens when we click it. So let's close this form and add some code that will be executed when we click this button. If you look at the panel right above our form, you will see 3 buttons: Source, Design, and History. The Design button is currently pressed, which means we are in design mode. If we click the Source button, we'll switch to the source code mode and we'll be able to see the source code of our form. The History button at this point is irrelevant to us. First of all, a JFrame is yet another class, and you can see that our Form A extends JFrame, which means that our Form A class is a JFrame. We'll talk about class extension later on, but what I'd like you to know is that while this Form A class looks more complex than the classes we have worked with up until now, essentially it's not very different from any of those. It's a Java class, just like any other. Now, to be tidy, let's get rid of the comments, space the code out a bit, and take a close look. We can see a main method, and inside the main method is code that at first might seem completely unfamiliar. But if you look closely, you will see that this line instantiates our Form A class using the new operator. There's also a setVisible method call, and even though we have never used the setVisible method before, we can sort of guess that what it does is it makes the form visible. In other words, it makes the form appear on the screen. I'm telling you all this to emphasize again that even though this code looks very unfamiliar, Form A is just a Java class. Now here at the top you can see some more code. It's a method declaration, and the name of the method is Form A, the same as the name of the class. Does anyone remember what this kind of method is called? Right, it's a class constructor. Inside the constructor you can see a method call. The name of the method is initComponents. The initComponents method is a method that NetBeans adds automatically when you add a JFrame form to your project. To see the method, you can click this tiny button here to the left of the Generated Code label. If you look closely, you will see code that mentions the button that we added to the form earlier. What does this mean? Well, first of all, it means that buttons and all other components that we add to a form are also Java classes. It also means that we do not need to worry about writing code when we want to, say, add a button to our form. NetBeans handles that for us. As a side note, because NetBeans handles the GUI code for us, we cannot edit the code it generates for us. If you try to add something to the initComponents method or delete something from it, you will just fail. NetBeans won't let you do any of that, which, to be fair, is absolutely fine for us at this point. So let's collapse this part of the code by pressing this tiny little button here. So let's have this program print hello when we click the Click Me button on the form. We do know how to print text in Java already, system.out.println. The question is, where do we place the println method call? Some of you might remember from one of the previous videos that in Java, as a rule, we can only call methods inside other methods. At this point, we only have 3 methods in the form A class. We have a main method, we have a class constructor, and we have the initComponents method. We cannot add anything to the initComponents method, so let's look at the other 2. If we call println method inside the main method or inside the constructor, the text will be printed at the very start of the program. And nothing will happen when we press the Click Me button. To have some code executed when we press the Click Me button, we need to place that code inside a special method that will get called when the button is pressed. Such special methods are called event handlers, and they do just that. They handle events. A button press is an event. To add an event handler for the Click Me button, we can switch to design mode by clicking the design button here, and then double-click the Click Me button. This will take you back to the code, but this time you will see a method that wasn't here before. The name of the method is JButton1ActionPerformed, and it's also highlighted gray, which means that it's handled by NetBeans and we can't modify the method header. But we can add code to its body. So let's place the println method call inside this event handler, like this. And run this file. Now, every time you press the Click Me button, the program prints hello in the console. But since we're making a GUI program and GUI programs should not use the console, let's modify our program so that it displays hello on the form when we press the button. To do that, let's switch to design mode and add a new component to our form. To display text on the form, we can use a label, this one. Let's place it on the form. Now, a label is represented by the JLabel class, and the label that we just added to our form is an instance of the JLabel class. The reference to this instance is stored in the JLabel1 variable that you can see here in the navigator pane. We can change the text of the label just like we did for the button by right-clicking on the label and choosing Edit Text. But we can also change the text of the label in code. To do that, we can use the setText method of the JLabel class. Let's switch to the source mode and delete the println method call. Now, let me repeat. We have a JLabel instance on our form. The reference to the instance is stored in the JLabel1 variable, and to change the text of a label, we need to call the setText method on the label whose text we want to change. If you're having trouble understanding what this means, I do recommend that you refer to the previous videos before proceeding with this one. So we go JLabel1.setText. Let's set the text to hello and run the program. Now, if you press the Click Me button, the text on the label will change to hello. Looks cool, but sort of useless. So let's now make it a little bit more useful. Let's make a simple calculator program that will support basic arithmetic operations. First, we should switch to design mode to delete the button and the label by right-clicking on them and choosing Delete. We now need a component to take user input, a component that allows the user to type in some text. Try to find something like that in the swing controls category on your own. We can use the TextField component, this one. Let's add it to our form. We will use it to let the user type in the numbers to do math with. To keep it simple, but unfortunately not very user-friendly, we will have 2 text fields on our form, one for each of the numbers that we will do math with. For example, if you want to add 1 and 2, you will type 1 in the first text field and 2 in the second one. To be a little bit more user-friendly, for each text field, let's add a label to explain the purpose of the text fields. We now need 4 buttons. For addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Finally, we need something to display the result. Any ideas? What component can we use for that? Right, we can use a label. Let's add one below the buttons. Let's also be neat and position the components nicely on the form. Erase the text inside the text fields, and set the text of the label to result. Let's also resize the form to make it look nicer. Now, if you look at the navigator pane, you will see all the components that we have added to our form. And the names of the components are extremely informative, aren't they? Let's fix this now, otherwise it might get confusing later on. What we need to change is the variable name. To change it, let's right-click on the component whose variable name we want to change and choose Change Variable Name. So let's name our text fields num1 and num2. Let's name our buttons AddBTN, SubBTN, MultBTN, and DivBTN. Finally, let's name the labels num1 label, num2 label, and result label. And if you look at the navigator, you will see that the names of the components now are more or less self-explanatory, which is way better than, say, JButton 1. Let's run our program. To see that the buttons look kinda smaller than we made them in design mode. This is an unpleasant feature of NetBeans, which, to keep it simple, we will not address in this video. Let's just pretend that the buttons look just fine. Before we get to code writing, let's do a quick recap. The form and all the labels, buttons, and text fields are instances of Java classes. We can place components on a form in design mode and then use those components to write code in source mode. To access the components on the form, we can use the variables that store references to the component objects. Now it's finally time to get to code writing. First, do we want the program to do anything at the start other than show the form? Not really. We do want something to happen only when we click one of the 4 buttons. When we click the addition button, we want the program to add the numbers from the text fields. When we press the subtraction button, we want the program to subtract the second number from the first. When we press the multiplication button, the program should multiply the 2 numbers. And when we press the division button, the program should divide the numbers. In other words, we need to add an event handler for each of the 4 buttons. How do we do that? Right, we double-click each of the 4 buttons. Let's do that. And now we have 4 event handlers in our code. Let's write the code for addition first. So when the addition button is pressed, we need to get the numbers from the text fields and add them up. Sounds simple, but in practice it's a bit more complicated. The thing is, text fields store text, not numbers. Remember, text and numbers are different data types. It cannot be used interchangeably, not in Java. This means that we first need to get the text from the text fields and then convert that text into numbers. And only then we will be able to do math with the numbers. I'm going to write comments here to summarize what we need to do. First, get the text from the text fields. Second, convert the text into numbers. Third, add the numbers. Fourth, display the result. So first, to get the text from the text fields, we can call the getText method using the num1 and num2 text fields. The return type of the getText method is string, so we need a string variable to store the text. Let's do the same for num2. Next, we need to convert the strings into numbers. To keep it simple, let's only use integer numbers without a fractional part. To store an integer number, we can use a variable of the type, right, int. How do we convert a string into an int? We can use the parseInt method of the integer class, like this. We can now add the 2 numbers and display the result in the result label by using what method? Right, the setText method. An issue here is that the setText method takes a string as a parameter. So we need to convert the int into string. To do that, we can use the valueOf method of the string class, like this. Let's now run the program to see if it works. And it does. Now we can achieve the same outcome with just one but long line of code, like this. But to keep our code more readable, let's not do that. Now, before we write code for the remaining buttons, please look at the code we wrote for the addition operation. Make sure you understand every single line of code, because if you don't, it will get even more confusing later on. Now, please try to make the remaining 3 operations work. So, what we need to copy-paste the code we wrote for addition and change the math part to subtraction, multiplication, and division, respectively. And it seems to be working. Not without issues though. First of all, since we only use integer numbers, the integer division gets applied to the numbers, making 2 the result of dividing 12 by 5. It should be 2.4. Also, if you type anything other than an integer number in any of the text fields, the program will throw an error. Another issue is that we have too much of copy-pasted code, which isn't a good practice. And of course, the buttons that look a bit too small. We'll fix these issues in the next video since there's already been a lot of new material in this one. As an afterword, let me draw your attention to the fact that almost everything in Java is a class or based on using classes and their methods. To get something done, you need to figure out what classes and what methods of those classes you need to use, which might be quite overwhelming for a beginner, but at the same time, that is easily Googleable. You just Google how to blah 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 in Java, or you watch videos like this one. The bottom line, object-oriented programming in general and programming with Java in particular sometimes is not as straightforward as some people would like it to be. But it's not impossible for a beginner to find learning assistance on the internet nowadays. And this is it for this video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.